The Kindest Counterfeiter. How Mr. 880 fooled the Secret Service with the world's worst fake dollar. If you imagine a counterfeiter, you might picture a shady criminal working underground with secret machines, fancy tools, and a plan to get rich fast. But America's most unusual counterfeiter, Emerich Juettner, also known as Edward Mueller or Mr. 880, looked nothing like that. He was a tiny, toothless old man who lived on West 96th Street in New York City, with only a black dog for company and a fierce desire to stay independent. Yet this gentle man fooled the United States Secret Service for 10 whole years, using the worst counterfeit dollar bills ever made. A man too honest to spend his savings. Before he became a legend, Juettner lived a quiet, hard-working life. After his wife died, he left his job as an apartment superintendent and made ends meet by collecting junk. Each day, he pushed a small handcart through Manhattan, gathering scrap metal, old newspapers, and anything he could sell. But by the late 1930s, life hit him hard. He earned $70 a month, roughly equal to about $1,500 today. But he desperately needed $100 for rent, food, and medicine. Most people in his situation would have dipped into their $5,000 in savings without hesitation. But not Emerich Juettner. He was too stubborn, too proud, and too determined to stand on his own. The bank wasn't his answer. His answer was a printer, or, as he would later explain with a gentle shrug, "I'll just make my own money." A library-trained counterfeiter. Juettner didn't want wealth, just a single extra dollar a day. So he walked to the New York Public Library and spent 2 weeks studying books on engraving, acids, printing plates, and paper. Libraries don't teach crime, of course, but they had plenty of technical information about the craft of printing money. Armed with book knowledge, a few basic tools, and a hand-cranked printing press squeezed into his kitchen, Juettner began his new operation. His first counterfeit dollar was a masterpiece of awfulness. Wahsington's eyes were uneven. His hair looked like it had been drawn with a child's crayon. The bill was crooked, smudged, and blurry. And best of all, the name under the portrait proudly read, Wahsington. Yet, when he nervously handed the bill to a newsstand clerk near Columbia University, the man didn't even glance at it. He simply gave Juettner his newspaper and 90 cents in change. The world's worst counterfeit dollar had just succeeded. The Secret Service's most confusing case. Within weeks, more strange-looking bills began showing up across Manhattan. Banks flagged them. Store owners complained. The Secret Service grew suspicious. Agent James J. Maloney, the tough chief investigator in New York, examined one of the bills and reportedly shook his head. "I've never seen anything this crude," he said. The case was filed as 880, and soon, agents began referring to the mystery man as Mr. 880. But catching him turned out to be almost impossible. Mr. 880 only used one fake dollar a day. He never returned to the same store twice, and he printed only the bare minimum he needed to survive. His frugality, his odd mix of honesty inside his dishonesty, made him extremely difficult to trace. Meanwhile, the Secret Service filled gigantic maps with red pushpins marking where each fake bill appeared. After a year, the map looked messy. After 5 years, it looked hopeless. And after 10 years, it looked like the map itself had given up. But Juettner remained invisible, blending into the crowds of New York as easily as a breeze. 10 years, one man, $1 at a time. While criminal gangs printing perfect $20 bills were caught within weeks, Mr. 880 quietly passed his crooked $1 bills around Manhattan for a full decade. He lived simply, buying bread and milk, reading old magazines, listening to the radio, and caring for his dog. He never tried to get rich. He only wanted to keep going. By 1947, around $7,000 of his crooked bills had entered circulation, and still not a single agent had caught a glimpse of him. A fire, some kids, and a twist of fate. Then, by pure chance, everything changed. In December 1947, a fire broke out in Juettner's apartment building. Smoke poured into his flat, and his elderly dog didn't survive. Heartbroken, believing all his possessions had been destroyed, he moved to Long Island to stay with his daughter. But the firefighters had thrown everything from his apartment, including his zinc printing plates and stacks of fake bills, out the window into a vacant lot below. A few days later, neighborhood boys found the money and began playing poker with it. One boy brought a handful home. His father recognized the famous Wahsington misspelling and contacted the police. Within hours, the Secret Service rushed to the scene. After 10 long years of searching, they had finally found their ghost. Sure, I made them. When agents arrived at his daughter's house, Juettner didn't hide the truth. He simply nodded and said, "Sure, I made the bills. I didn't want to dip into my savings." The courtroom burst into laughter. The judge, unable to treat him like a hardened criminal, ultimately sentenced him to 1 year and 1 day in prison, plus a fine of $1. The extra 1 day wasn't just symbolic. It placed him just over the 1-year mark, which under federal law allowed eligibility for parole or other reduced custody benefits much earlier than a straight 1-year term would. Because of his advanced age and other mitigating factors, he served only about 4 months. A few years later, Hollywood came knocking. The film Mr. 880 was released in 1950, and Juettner was paid $3,000, about 4 times the money he had made through 10 years of counterfeiting. Why we still remember him. Emerich Juettner died in 1955, remembered not as a dangerous criminal, but as an oddly charming figure, an example of human resilience mixed with humor and humility. He never hurt anyone. He never got greedy. He simply tried to survive with dignity during hard times, and accidentally became a legend. His final reward was the perfect irony. For printing the world's worst fake dollars, Hollywood paid him real money. His story reminds us that sometimes history's most unforgettable characters are neither heroes nor villains, but ordinary people doing the best they can, one imperfect dollar at a time.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Counterfeiter. Definition: a person who illegally makes copies of money, documents, or products in order to deceive others. Example: the counterfeiter tried to pass off fake bills as real money, but a store clerk noticed the mistake. 2. Shady. Definition: describes someone or something that seems dishonest, suspicious, or untrustworthy. Example: the deal sounded shady, so she decided not to sign any papers. 3. Crooked. Definition: bent, not straight, or morally dishonest. Can describe something physically uneven or a person who behaves unfairly. Example: the picture on the wall was crooked, leaning noticeably to one side. 4. Smudged. Definition: marked or stained by something being rubbed or smeared, making it look messy or unclear. Example: rain made the ink on the envelope smudged, so the address was hard to read. 5. Blurry. Definition: not clear or sharp, making it difficult to see details. Example: the photo came out blurry because the camera moved during the shot. 6. Crude. Definition: made in a simple, rough, or unrefined way, lacking skill, polish, or detail. Example: his first sketch was crude, missing many of the details he planned to add later. 7. Frugality. Definition: the quality of being careful with money and resources, avoiding waste and unnecessary spending. Example: her frugality helped her save enough money to buy her first home. 8. His advanced age. Definition: a polite way to describe someone being very old, or in the later years of life. Example: because of his advanced age, he received special consideration during sentencing. 9. Mitigating. Definition: making something less severe, serious, or harsh, often used to describe circumstances that reduce blame or punishment. Example: the judge considered the man's poor health as a mitigating factor in the case. 10. Resilience. Definition: The ability to recover from difficulties, challenges, or setbacks, emotional or physical strength. Example: her resilience showed when she continued working hard, despite several failures. 11. Villain. Definition: a character or person who behaves in a cruel, harmful, or morally wrong way. The bad guy in a story. Example in many fairy tales. The villain tries to stop the hero from reaching their goal.
Comprehension questions. 1. Who was Mr. 880, and what was he known for? Answer: Mr. 880 was Emerich Juettner, a gentle elderly man from New York, known for creating the worst counterfeit $1 bills in American history, and fooling the Secret Service for 10 years. 2. Why did Juettner begin counterfeiting in the first place? Answer: he earned only $70 a month, about $1,500 in today's money, but needed $100 to survive. Too proud to touch his $5,000 savings, he chose to print small amounts of money to make ends meet. 3. Where did Juettner learn how to counterfeit money? Answer: he learned by studying books at the New York Public Library about engraving, printing, acids, and paper. 4. What made Juettner's counterfeit bills so unusual? Answer: they were extremely bad, crooked, blurry, drawn with poor detail, and even misspelled Washington as Wahsington. 5. Why did shopkeepers often fail to recognize his bills as fake? Answer: most people barely check $1 bills, and Juettner's quiet, ordinary appearance made him completely forgettable. 6. What nickname did the Secret Service give him and why? Answer: they called him Mr. 880, after the case file number assigned to the long-running investigation. 7. Why was Mr. 880 so hard for the Secret Service to catch? Answer: he only passed one fake bill a day, never visited the same store twice, and printed just enough money to survive, making his pattern almost impossible to track. 8. Approximately how much counterfeit money did he put into circulation? Answer: around $7,000 over 10 years. 9. How was Juettner finally discovered? Answer: after a fire in his apartment, firefighters threw his belongings, including printing plates and fake bills, into a vacant lot. Local kids found the money, and their parents eventually reported it. 10. What was Juettner's famous response when agents confronted him? Answer: sure, I made the bills. I didn't want to dip into my savings. 11. Why did the judge sentence him to 1 year and 1 day in prison? Answer: a sentence of exactly 1 year cannot be paroled. By adding 1 day, the judge made him eligible for early release. It was both practical and symbolic, reflecting the court's leniency toward him. 12. How did Juettner end up earning more money from his story than from his crime? Answer: Hollywood bought the rights to his life and made the film Mr. 880, paying him $3,000, about 4 times what he earned from 10 years of counterfeiting.